And so the author says, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy upon him. That's Ibn Hajar Al-Asqalaniyy. Now he's going to talk about names. He's going to give you scenarios that the scholars of Hadith have to deal with when it comes to the names of men. Many, many, many names. He says, ثُمَّ الرُّوَاةُ إِنِ اتَّفَقَتْ أَسْمَاؤُهُمْ وَأَسْمَاءُ آبَائِهِمْ فَصَاعِدًا. Then there are the narrators. If their names and their fathers' names happen to be the same, or even further than their fathers, like their grandfathers, for example, وَاخْتَلَفَتْ أَشْخَاصُهُمْ, but they are different people. سَوَاءٌ اتَّفَقَ فِي ذَلِكَ اثْنَانِ مِنْهُمْ أَوْ أَكْثَرُ, whether that's two of them that have the same name or more. وَكَذَلِكَ إِذَا اتَّفَقَ اثْنَانِ فَصَاعِدًا فِي الْكُنْيَةِ وَالنِّسْبَةِ. And likewise, if two have the same kunya, kunya is the name that starts with ab or So Abu Bakr, for example, that's a kunya. Abu Hanifa, that's a kunya. Salama, Kulthum, that's kunya. He says, وَكَذَلِكَ إِذَا اتَّفَقَ اثْنَانِ فَصَاعِدًا. Likewise, if two or more agree in fil kunya, in having the kunya, one nisba, and the attribution. Attribution is like to say Qurashi, for example, from Quraysh, or the likes of that, like Naysaburi from Naysabur, Al-Iraqi from Iraq. Same nisba, same attribution. فهو النوع الذي يقال له. So this type is called al-muttafiq wal-muftariq. Those who have the same names, but their persons are different. Same name, different person. Al-muttafiq wal-muftariq. Same name, different person. وفائدة معرفته خشية أن يظن الشخصان شخصا واحدا. And the benefit of knowing this type is the fear of thinking that two people are the same person. That two different people are the same person. وقد صنف فيه الخطيب كتابا حافلا. Al-Khatib authored a hefty book in this subject. وقد لخصته وزدت عليه شيئا كثيرا. And I summarized that book and then added to it a lot. I summarized it and then added a lot to it. وهذا عكس ما تقدم. In this case is the reverse of a previous case. من النوع المسمى بالمهمل. That case that's called al-muhmal. Muhmal literally means neglected, left alone. This is the one who has more than one name. He's one person with more than one name. لأنه يخشى منه أن يظن الواحد اثنين. Because in that case, it's feared that it would be thought that one individual is two different people. وهذا يخشى منه أن يظن الاثنان واحدا. In this case, it's feared that two people, that it would be thought that two people are the same person. وإن اتفقت الأسماء خطا واختلفت نطقا. And if the names are written the same, written the same here doesn't include the dots, just the shapes of the letters without the dots and without the harakat. So if the names are written the same, but pronounced differently, سواء كان مرجع الاختلاف النقط أم الشكل, whether the difference goes back to difference in the dotting or difference in the voweling. It's written the same in terms of the shapes of the characters. So it has the same characters. Because Jim, Ha, and Kha, they have the same character. They just differ in dot. Sin, Sheen, same character. Sad, Dad, same character. So this is the case where اتفقت الأسماء خطا. The names are the same in character. واختلفت نطقا, but they differ in pronunciation. How would that be? سواء كان مرجع الاختلاف النقط أم الشكل. Whether the source of the difference in pronunciation were the dotting or the voweling. فهو المؤتلف والمختلف. This is the case of same script, different pronunciation. Written the same, pronounced differently. Al-mu'talif wal-mukhtalif. Written the same and pronounced differently. وَمَعَرِفَتُهُ مِن مُهِمَّاتِ هَذَا الْفَنِّ. And knowing this type is among the very important topics of this field. حتى قال علي بن المديني, to the extent that Ali ibn al-Madini said, أشد تصحيف ما يقع في الأسماء. The worst mistakes happen in the names, getting the names wrong. ووجهه بعضهم بأنه شيء لا يدخله القياس. Some said the reason for this being the worst case of perversion, I said mistake, but perversion really. Ali ibn al-Madini said, أشد تصحيف, the worst perversion, ما يقع في الأسماء, is what happens to the names. ووجهه بعضهم بأنه شيء لا يدخله القياس. Some scholars said that the source of this is that names are not based on a consistent rule. You never know what someone's name might be or how it might vary in some way. وَلَا قَبْلَهُ شَيْءٌ يَدُلُّ عَلَيْهِ. And names don't have anything before them that proves what they are. وَلَا بَعْدَهُ, nor something after them. يعني they don't have something before them that proves what they are, nor something after them that proves what they are. So I think that in concept, that's clear for you. Now, I was just thinking of an example. Yani, if you know some Arabic, then the examples are very clear. Like, for example, when Allah Ta'ala says, وَالشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي لِمُسْتَقَرٍّ لَهَا. وَالشَّمْسُ, the sun, تَجْرِي, it runs, لِمُسْتَقَرٍّ لَهَا, in a pathway that it has, in an orbit that it has. الشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي, here, تَجْرِي with a ta, تَجْرِي, that's feminine. So this proves then that the word shams is feminine. So something after it proves something about it. وَالشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي. So something that came after the word shams proved to us something about the word shams, which is its femininity. Names don't have something like this, something before them or after them that would prove what they are. وَقَدْ صَنَّفَ فِيهِ أَبُو أَحْمَدَ الْعَسْكَرِيّ. Abu Ahmad al-Askari authored in this subject. لكنه أضافه إلى كتاب التصحيف له. But he annexed that to another book of his. He made it a part of another book of his, Kitab al-Tashif, the book of Tashif, of perversion. ثم أفرده بالتأليف عبد الغني بن سعيد. Then Abdul Ghani ibn Sa'id, he wrote an independent work in this subject. فجمع فيه كتابين. He compiled two books. كتاب في مشتبه الأسماء, one book about confused names, وكتاب في مشتبه النسبة, and one book about confused attributions. وجمع شيخه الدارقطني في ذلك كتابا حافلا, and his sheikh ad-Daraqutni also authored about that a hefty book. ثم جمع الخطيب ذيلا, and then Al-Khatib came after that, and he wrote a continuation for it. A veil, a tale. He wrote a veil. Veil is like a book of continuation for another book. A scholar writes a book, and then another scholar comes, finds that first book lacking some information that it could have. So he writes something and attaches it to the end of that book. He continues the book. That's called veil. And the word veil in Arabic is a tail, like an animal tail.
Which spelling?
Tail. ثم جمع الجميع أبو نصر بن ماكولة. Then Abu Nasr ibn Makula gathered all of that. He compiled all of that في كتابه الإكمال, in his book called Al-Ikmal. You're welcome. واستدرك عليهم في كتاب آخر, and he did another book in which he corrected those others. جمع فيه أوهامهم. In that book, he collected their mistakes, their oham, things that they thought were right but they were wrong, things that they were delusional about. Those good scholars who happen to be mistaken. The word delusional might be strong. Mistakes. وبينها, and he clarified the mistakes. وكتابه من أجمع ما جمع في ذلك, and his book is amongst the most inclusive of anything authored in that field. وهو عمدة كل محدث بعده, and his book is the reference for every hadith scholar who came after. وقد استدرك عليه أبو بكر بن نقطة ما فاته, and Abu Bakr ibn Nuqtah, he caught what Ibn Makula missed. أو تجدد بعده, or what was updated since him. في مجلد ضخم, he did that in a large volume. ثم ذيل عليه منصور ibn Salim, and then Mansur ibn Salim did a veil for that book, that hefty, that big volume. بفتح السين, Salim with a fatha on the scene. His name is Mansur ibn Salim with a fatha on the scene. في مجلد لطيف. That conclusion to the book, that follow-up to the book, it is a small book. وكذلك أبو حامد ibn الصابوني, and also Abu Hamid ibn الصابوني, he did a veil for that book. وجمع الذهبي في ذلك كتابا مختصرا جدا, and الذهبي, he compiled a book in that subject that's extremely summarized. It's exaggeratedly summarized according to Al-Iraqi. أجحف في الاختصار, he says. Like, he indulged in summarization. Ibn Hajar says, مختصرا جدا, very summarized. اعتمد فيه على الضبط بالقلم. In that book, Al-Dhahabi merely relied on exactifying the names by writing them in his book, not spelling them out. He didn't spell the names out. How do you spell the Arabic names out? You're going to see. We already saw a little bit of it. You're going to see more as I read for you. You're going to see them spell the names out. He's saying Al-Dhahabi, that's that one we know, that Dhahabi, the one who's troubled. He says Al-Dhahabi compiled a book very summarized in this issue. And in it, he merely relied on writing the names out by pen, like just writing the name, putting the harakats and the dots, and that's it. Without spelling the name out, فَكَثُرَ فِيهِ الْغَلَطُ وَالتَّصْحِيفُ. And then, because of that, yani, through transmitting this book, as the book got transmitted, it became abundant with mistakes and perversion. Al-mubayinu li-mawdu'i al-kitab, which defeats the purpose of the book. This is a book for documenting how to get the names right, because you have so many scenarios. Same name, different person, same written, same characters, different pronunciation, etc., etc. And then he writes a book in a way that makes it susceptible to abundant mistakes. So that's interesting. You'd wonder why, how. That Dhahabi, he's mushabbi, likens Allah to the creations. Mushabbiha, they can be sloppy. وقد يسر الله تعالى بتوضيحه في كتاب سميته تبصير المنتبه بتحرير المشتبه. He says, Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, he says, and God, exalted is He, facilitated its clarity in a book that I named تبصير المنتبه بتحرير المشتبه. Yani Ibn Hajar saying, that book, I worked on it. I took that book of Al-Dhahabi that's not tight, and I tightened it up. وهو مجلد واحد, in one volume. فضبطته بالحروف على الطريقة المرضية. And I exactified the letters in the acceptable way. وزدت عليه شيئا كثيرا, and I added a lot to it. مما أهمله أو لم يقف عليه. I added a lot to that book that Al-Dhahabi left out or didn't know. وَلِلَّهِ الْحَمْدُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ. And praise God for that. Yani, no praise to myself. Rather, the praise is to God who enabled me to do so. وَإِنِ اتَّفَقَتِ الْأَسْمَاءُ خَطًّا وَنُطْقًا. Now, if the names agree in character and in pronunciation, وَاخْتَلَفَ الْآبَاءُ نُطْقًا مَعَ ائْتِلَافِهِمَا خَطًّا. But the names of the fathers differ in pronunciation while written with the same characters. So the name of the narrators are the same in writing and pronunciation, but the names of the fathers are different in pronunciation, but the same in writing. كمحمد ibn Aqil بفتح العين, like Muhammad ibn Aqil, Muhammad son of Aqil, with the fatha on the ayn, Aqil, and Muhammad ibn Uqayl, and another one whose name is Muhammad, so same first name, Muhammad, son of, the first one, his dad's name is Aqil, and the second one, his dad's name is Uqayl. So it's spelled exactly the same, but the voweling is different. بضمها, with a dhamma, u sound on the ayn. Al-awwalu Naysaburi. The first one, Muhammad ibn Aqil, he's from Naysabur. وَالثَّانِي فِرْيَابِي. And the second one is a Firyabi. وهما مشهوران. Both of them are famous. وطبقتهما متقاربة. And they are close in level. In their level. Level here means, yani, for example, the companions, that's a level. The followers of the companions, that's a level. The followers of the followers, that's a level. That's the tabaqa. And then each one of those levels, you can break them into levels. Because the companions, for example, there were the first and early migrants from Mecca. There were the first and early supporters from Medina. That's a level. That's a level. There were those who participated in the Battle of Badr. That's a level. And others. And then there were those who were young when the Prophet died, alayhi salatu wasalam. That's a level. Like Ibn Abbas. So he says, وَطَبَقَتُهُمَا مُتَقَارِبَةٌ. Their level, those two, is close. Oh, بالعكس. Or it could be the other way. كأن تختلف الأسماء نطقا. Like for the names to be different in pronunciation. وتأتلف خطا. But they agree in script. وتتفق الآباء خطا ونطقا. And the fathers would be the same in writing and pronunciation. So it's the reverse. كشريح ابن النعمان وسريج ابن النعمان. Like Shurayh, the son of An-Nu'man, versus Surayj, the son of An-Nu'man. So same script, but Sheen has 3 dots, Sin has no dots. And Ha has no dot, and Jim has a dot. But without regarding the dots and the vowels, it's the same characters. And the fathers have the same name. Al-awwalu bishin al-mu'jamati wal-ha' al-muhmala. So here's how they spell it out. He says, the first has a dotted sheen. A dotted sheen. So that means when he tells you that, the first one has a dotted sheen. Let's say this copy we're reading, for example, had a typo in it. And these dots here that I'm scribbling, but I meant to circle. And these dots here, let's say we had a typo in our copy and these dots here weren't written. And what was here was a scene. So when he says, if we didn't know and we were reading this, we would say, like Surayh ibn Nu'man, because that's what would be written on the page. But then when we get here, he spells it out. He says, Al-awwalu bishin al-mu'jama. The first one has a dotted sheen. Then we would know, because he spelled it out for us, that there's a typo on our page. That's supposed to be a dotted sheen, and then we could put the dots in there. So that's what Al-Dhahabi didn't do in his book. He just wrote it out with his hand only. Well, ha il muhmala, and the first one has a ha without a dot. Wahuwa tabi'iyun. This one, he's a tabi'i, one of the followers of the companions. Yarwi an Ali radiyallahu anhu. He narrates from Ali. Wathani bisini al-muhmala. The second one is with a scene without dots. So same thing. What if we had a typo in our book here and this one was written with dots? If we didn't know better, we would just read what's there and we'd say Shurayj. Then we'll keep reading, and then we'd get down here, and he says, "Wathani bisin al-muhmala." The second one is with a scene without dots. Then we would know that we have a typo on our page because he spelled it out for us. That's how the scholars avoided the blunders in the spelling, because you can see that Arabic, with all these dots and all these vowel slashes, all these what people call diacritical marks. All this slash here and this slash there and this wiggle there and this wiggle here and this dot here, this one on top and this one on bottom, etc., etc. How easy it would be to get these things wrong. So to prevent that from happening, the scholars would just literally spell the word out, or at least spell out the letters that are the ones likely to be mistaken. Sometimes the rest of the letters are clear. They don't have to say anything. Sometimes they'll tell you all the letters in the word. Sometimes they'll just tell you some of the letters. He says, وَالثَّانِي بِالسِّينِ الْمُهْمَلَةِ. The second one is with a sin without dots. وَالْجِيم, and with a jim. So he didn't have to say with a dot. He could have, though. He could have said a jim with a dot, but he didn't have to, because when he writes this word right here, jim, then we know exactly. Just even if they got the dots wrong, we're still going to know. Jim, because it's not ha or kha. It must be jim. Yani, if you know the Arabic, if you know how to read the Arabic, you know what I'm saying. وَهُوَ مِنْ شُيُوخِ الْبُخَارِي. This one is one of Al-Bukhari's sheikhs. فَهُوَ النَّوْعُ الَّذِي يُقَالُ لَهُ الْمُتَشَابِهِ. This one is the type called mutashabih. Says المتشابه هو أن يتفق اسم الشخص أن يتفق اسم الشخصين أو كنيتهما ويوجد في نسبتهما الاختلاف والائتلاف الذي عرفناه فهو مركب من النوعين. So he says this type is called mutashabih. So that's the same word that we know when we talk about those ayahs from the Quran that should not be taken literally. They're called mutashabih. That's mutashabih in tafsir of Quran. Now we're talking hadith science. Same word, different application. Mutashabih, which is what we just said. What's that? He told us. Their names are written the same and pronounced the same, but their fathers' names are pronounced differently, though written the same, or the reverse of that. So that's called mutashabih. So confused or obscure or similar, resembling, something like that. Allah knows the best way to direct the translation there. So that's mutashabih in hadith terminology. There's also muhkam in hadith terminology that means something different too. وكذا إن وقع ذلك الاتفاق في الاسم واسم الأب. And likewise, if this agreement happened in the narrator's name and the name of his father, والاختلاف في النسبة, but the difference between them would be in the attribution. وقد صنف فيه الخطيب كتابا جليلا. Al-Khatib authored a great book about this. سماه تلخيص المتشابه. He called it the synopsis of the mutashabih. ثم ذيل عليه أيضا بما فاته أولا. And then Al-Khatib wrote his own continuation to the book, a veil for his own book, documenting in that continuation what missed him the first time, what escaped him the first time. وهو كثير الفائدة, and it is very beneficial. Subhanallah. Some of those books of scholars so nice. Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, his book Al-Faqih wal-Mutafaqih, Subhanallah. It's so awesome. If I get to take that book, I will certainly give it to you. Make dua. Inshallah. Also, there's another book that's so nice. What is it? Mufradatul Quran by Ar-Raghib Al-Asbahani. In my studies and my work, sometimes I opened up the book of Ar-Raghib Al-Asbahani. It's a dictionary of Quranic terms. It's a Quran dictionary. It's dictionary. It's not so much tafsir, it's dictionary of Quranic words. But of course has tafsir in it. So beneficial, yani, so nice. His book's so nice, I just get caught up and taken away, swept away by his book and get off of my work. وَيَتَرَكَّبُ مِنْهُ وَمِمَّا قَبْلَهُ أَنْوَاعٌ. And based on this type and the prior type, some other kinds, some other scenarios come. منها أن يحصل الاتفاق أو الاشتباه. Yeah, what you said اشتباه. في الاسم واسم الأب مثلا إلا في حرف أو حرفين. So an example is like for the agreement or the confusion to be in the narrator's names and the names of their fathers, for example, except in a letter or two, فأكثر or more, من أحدهما أو منهما, on part of one of them or both of them. وهو على قسمين, and this is of two divisions. إما أن يكون الاختلاف بالتغيير مع أن عدد الحروف ثابتة في الوجهين في الجهتين. It would either be that the difference would be that the names are different. There's a difference between the names, but the number of letters is the same on both sides. So there's an amount of similarity there. Yani, if the significance of him saying this to you is not clear for you, then maybe that's because you haven't tried to memorize a lot of names. He's talking here now about a whole subsection of hadith terminology. Just knowing the names of how many narrators, thousands and thousands, these hadith scholars know thousands and thousands and thousands of names, not just the chains of narration. Remember, these thousands of chains of narration, what's one person's name in the chain? He might be Fulan, the son of the Fulan, the son of Fulan, the Fulani. He might be Abu Fulan, the son of Fulan, Al-Fulani. So there's so many names. Thousands of names without mixing them up. So they did such a big job in sifting all of this apart that they were able to list all these scenarios. They didn't make these scenarios up. This information is the result of all of their hard work. So one case would be that the name, the agreement or the confusion happens in the names of the narrators and their fathers' names, for example, but except in a letter or two or more. And then there's two cases here. It could be that there's a difference between their names, but the number of letters are the same from both sides. أو يكون الاختلاف بالتغيير مع نقصان بعض الأسماء عن بعض. Or it could be that there is a difference in the names and with subtraction of some of the names. Then he's going to give examples. فَمِنْ أَمْثِلَةِ الْأَوَّلِ, examples of the first is Muhammad ibn Sinan, Muhammad ibn Sinan, بِكَسْرِ الْمُهْمَلَةِ, with a kasra on the undotted scene. So what if here Ibn Hajar didn't put any vowel here on this scene? Now I'm reading this, there's a kasra there. Now I have my own copy. What I'm reading to you, what I'm looking at, what I'm sharing with you on my screen, this is not my copy. So I don't rely on the harakat in this copy. What if there was no kasra here? then I wouldn't know. Is this Sinan or is it Sanan or is it something else? Then he spells it out. Bi kasri al-muhmala. Just by saying that, then I know, even if this kasra wasn't here, that, oh, so that's C. Because he told me there's a kasra on the one without dots, and it's not she. One nunain, and with two noons. Here's the first noon, and here's the second noon. Baynahuma alif. And there's an alif between these two noons. And there's an alif here between these two noons. So he spelled it all the way out for us. Sinan. Now he didn't say if there's a shadda on the noon, the first noon or not. But we're not going to say there is because he didn't tell us there is. So again, this is what Al-Dhahabi didn't do. So somebody's not going to know, is that supposed to be kasra or is it supposed to be a sheen or what? Wahum Jama'ah, there's a group of people who have this name, Muhammad ibn Sinan. Minhum al-Awaqi, one of them is called al-Awaqi. So same name, different attribution. Al-Awaqi, bi-fathi al-ayni wal-wawi, thumma qaf. With a fatha on the ayn, a, and a fatha on the waw, wa, and then a qaf. Al-Awaqi. Shaykh al-Bukhari, he's one of Bukhari's shaykhs. Wa Muhammad ibn Sayyar, and then there's Muhammad ibn Sayyar. Bi-fathi al-muhmala, with a fatha on the scene without dots. Wa tashdid al-ya' al-tahtiyah, and with a shadda on the ya that has dots underneath. Wa ba'd al-alif ra, and then after the alif there's a ra. Sayyab, so he spelled it all the way out for us. Wahum aydan jama'ah, there's a group of people with this name too. Minhum al-Yamani, one of them is al-Yamani, Muhammad ibn Sayyar al-Yamani, amongst others. Shaykh Umar ibn Yunus, the Shaykh of Umar ibn Yunus. ومنها محمد ibn Hunayn, another is Muhammad ibn Hunayn. بضم المهملة, with a dhamma on the hat without dots. Who? Because maybe someone would look at that and think, is it Haneen? Muhammad ibn Haneen? So he told us with a dhamma, Hunayn. Wa nunayn, and having two noons. Al-ula maftuha, the first noon has a fatha. Hunayn. Baynahuma ya'un tahtiyya, between those two noons there's a ya with dots from underneath. Muhammad ibn Hunayn. Tabi'i, he's a tabi'i, follower of the companions. Yarwi an ibn Abbas wa ghayrihi, he narrates from Ibn Abbas and others. Wa Muhammad ibn Jubayr, and Muhammad ibn Jubayr bil jim, with a jim, Jew. Muwahhada, with one dot. Even if he didn't say with one dot though, it would be one dot because it's jim. Wa akhiruhu ra, and the last letter is a ra, Jubayr. وهو محمد بن جبير بن مطعم. He is Muhammad ibn Jubayr ibn Mut'im, tabi'i mashhur أيضا, another famous tabi'i. So what happened here? He told us. Back up a little bit. He says, based on this and what came before, there's other types. Amongst those types is when the agreement or the confusion is in the names of the narrators and the names of the fathers, for example, but a letter or two or more is different from one of them or both of them. And that has two divisions. One division is that the difference is by changing some letters, but the number of letters is the same on both sides. And the other one is that the difference is by changing some letters with subtraction of some of the names. So he gave us examples. Muhammad ibn Sinan. And there's Muhammad ibn Sayyar. So Muhammad. Sinan starts with a sin. Sayyar starts with a sin. Sinan has a noon. Sayyar has a ya. Noon and ya have the same character, but noon has one dot up top and ya has one dot underneath. Two dots, sorry. And ya has two dots underneath. Then Sinan has an alif and Sayyar has an alif. Look, so the spelling's so close without regarding the harakat, just the characters. But Sinan ends with a noon and Sayyar ends with a ra. And he says, and then there's Muhammad ibn Hunayn, and there's Muhammad ibn Jubair. So Muhammad, Hunayn, Jubair, Hunayn with a ha, yani 4 letters on both sides. Hunayn with a ha without dots, Jubair with the dot. The second letter in Hunayn is a noon, dot up top, Jubair with a bat, dot underneath. So same character, different dot. Hunayn has a ya as the third letter, and so does Jubair. And then the last letter of Hunayn is a noon, while the last letter of Jubair is a ra. So things like that, when you're memorizing on a massive scale like they are, it's going to be susceptible to mixing. He says, وَمِنْ ذَلِكَ مُعَرِّفُ بْنُ وَاصِلٍ. Another example is Mu'arrif, the son of Wasil, Kufiyun Mashhur. He's a famous Kufite. Yeah, he's from Kufa. And then there's another one, وَمُطَرِّفُ ibn Wasil. And then there's someone named Mutarrif ibn Wasil. So one, his name is Mu'arrif, and one, his name is Mutarrif. So the second letter is different, very different, but all the other letters are the same. Mu'arrif, Mutarrif. So Ayn doesn't look or sound like Ta, but still is so close because all the other letters are the same. And the father's name's the same. Mu'arrif ibn Wasil and Mutarrif ibn Wasil. So one of us would say, I have trouble memorizing a short surah of the Quran. How am I going to memorize all these names? بالطاء بدل العين شيخ آخر. This one, Mutarrif, he's another sheikh. يروي عنه أبو حذيفة النهدي. Abu Hudhayfa al-Nahdi narrates from him. ومنه أيضا أحمد بن الحسين. Another one is Ahmad ibn al-Husayn, صاحب إبراهيم بن سعيد وآخرون. Ahmad ibn al-Husayn is the companion of Ibrahim ibn Sa'd. And there's others. وآخرون looks like it goes back to Ahmad ibn al-Husayn. But I won't comment there. وأحيد, then there's someone named Ahyad ibn al-Husayn. مثله. So Ahmad ibn al-Husayn and Ahyad ibn al-Husayn spelled the same, except one has a meme, Ahmad, the other has a ya, Ahyad. لكن بدل الميم ياء تحتية وهو شيخ بخاري. This one, Ahyad, He's a sheikh from Bukhara. يروي عنه عبد الله بن محمد البيكندي. Abdullah bin Muhammad al-Bikandi narrates from him. ومن ذلك أيضا حفص بن ميسرة. Also another example is Hafs ibn Maysarah, شيخ مشهور من طبقة مالك. He's a famous sheikh at the level of Malik. Or Ja'far ibn Maysarah. And there's Ja'far ibn Maysarah, شيخ لعبيد الله ibn Musa al-Kufi. He's a sheikh of Ubaydillah ibn Musa al-Kufi. الأول بالحاء المهملة والفاء بعدها صاد مهملة. So the first one, his name has a ha without a dot, followed by a fa, after which there's a sad without a dot. والثاني بالجيم والعين المهملة. The second one, so his name's Hafs, this one, first one. Hafs ibn Maysara, then there's one named Ja'far ibn Maysara. So it's not so close, but, excuse me. It's close enough for Ibn Hajar to compare them. He says, وَالثَّانِي بِالْجِيم. The second one is Ja'far. It starts with a jim. وَالْعَيْنِ الْمُهْمَلَةِ. And has an ayn without a dot. بَعْدَهَا فَاءٌ ثُمَّ رَاءٌ. And then after there's a fa, and then after there's a ra. So he spells the whole name out. وَمِنْ أَمْثِلَةِ الثَّانِي عَبْدُ اللَّهِ ibn Zayd. And an example of the second case is Abdullah ibn Zayd. وَهُمْ جَمَاعَةٌ. There's a group of people with this name. منهم في الصحابة صاحب الأذان. One of them is a companion. واسم جده عبد ربه. This one, Abdullah, son of Zayd, his grandfather's name is Abdu Rabbihi. So his name's Abdullah, his father's name is Zayd, and his grandfather's name is Abdu Rabbihi. وراوي حديث الوضوء. Then there's another companion who has the same name, Abdullah bin Zayd. He's the narrator of the hadith about wudu. واسم جده عاصم. But his grandfather's name is Asim. So there's Abdullah ibn Zayd ibn Abdi Rabbihi, and there's Abdullah ibn Zayd ibn Asim. وهما أنصاريان. Both of them are from the Ansar. وعبد الله ibn Yazid. And then there's Abdullah ibn Yazid. And the name Yazid is so close to the name Zayd. It's just an extra letter there. Yazid, Zayd. بزيادة ياء في أول اسم الأب. With an extra ya in the beginning of the father's name. والزاي مكسورة. And it has a zay with a kasra. Yazid. وهم أيضا جماعة. There's also a group of men with this name. منهم في الصحابة الخطمي. One of them is a companion who's called Al-Khatmi. يكنى أبا موسى. His kunya is Abu Musa. وحديثه في الصحيحين. He has hadiths that are documented in the two authentic books. Qari, another companion who has this name, Abdullah ibn Yazid, is a reciter. له ذكر في حديث عائشة رضي الله عنها. He's mentioned in a hadith of Aisha. وقد زعم بعضهم أنه الخطمي. And some claim that this second one, he is the first one, Al-Khatmi. وفيه نظر. And that's disputable. ومنها عبد الله بن يحيى. Another example is Abdullah ibn Yahya. وهم جماعة. There's a group of men who have this name too. وعبد الله ibn نجي بضم النون وفتح الجيم وتشديد الياء. This one, Abdullah ibn Nujay, tabi'i ma'ruf. He's a known tabi'i. يروي عن Ali. He narrates from Ali رضي الله عنه. أو يحصل الاتفاق في الخط والنطق. Or it could be that the agreement is in the characters and in the pronunciation. لكن يحصل الاختلاف أو الاشتباه بالتقديم والتأخير. But the the difference or the confusion would occur in the sequence. Which comes first, which comes second? إما في الاسمين جملة أو نحو ذلك, either in both names together or is like that. كأن يقع التقديم والتأخير في الاسم الواحد في بعض حروفه بالنسبة إلى ما يشتبه به. Like for advance and delay to occur in one name in some of the letters. The rearrangement of sequences in some of the letters. مثال الأول, an example of the first is Al-Aswad ibn Yazid, someone named Al-Aswad, son of Yazid. وَيَزِيد ibn al-Aswad, and then another person named Yazid ibn al-Aswad, so it's reversed. وهو ظاهر, this example is obvious. ومنه عبد الله ibn Yazid, and another one is Abdullah ibn Yazid, ويزيد ibn Abdullah, and Yazid ibn Abdullah, also the reverse. ومثال الثاني أيوب ibn Sayyar, the example of the second one where the letters go out of sequence, not the names, is Ayyub ibn Sayyar, Sin Ya Alif Ra, and Ayyub ibn Yasar, Ya Sin Alif Ra. So Ya and Sin, Sin and Ya. Al-awwalu madani, mashhurun, laysa bil qawi. The first one, Ayyub ibn Sayyar, he's from Medina, he's famous, and he's not a strong narrator. وَالْآخَرُ مَجْهُولٌ, and this other one, Ayyub ibn Yasar, he's unknown. Wallahu a'lam.